Hey guys, and welcome to another installment of the Hooligan Chronicles. And today I have a very, very special guest, a very good friend of mine. We go way, way back, and that is a lot of people know him as Gary G6 Turner, and obviously to Apollon crowd, he needs no introduction because he is one of the all timers. It's actually strange to say it now. But I want to start with, first of all, congratulating Gary on finally becoming an IFBB Pro. Gary, congratulations. Dream come true. Very much deserved. And I mean, although I know, but how do you feel?
Very good and very relieved. And thank you for having me on the show. Yeah, it was the reaction, of course, was happiness to do it, but also relief. Just because we've been chasing it at least at the pro qualifier level since 2020, which isn't that long, but I've been competing for 13 years. This was the 18th show I did, so I wasn't sure. This was the main goal. I wasn't. As I went through my career, the goals changed from, of course, you wanted to be Mr. Olympia first, and then you realize that's not possible, and then, they said maybe I'd be a winning pro, and then you realize, well, that's maybe not possible, and then you start like lowering your expectations a little bit, and I was at the level where I was just trying to get a pro card, and then and bow out at that point, and so to win it, in New Jersey like that was a huge relief for me, and finished off that way.
Okay, well, I know many, many years ago when you just got started, everybody was, you know, um, I mean, let's be honest, everybody was making fun of you,
Mhm,
that you have absolutely no chance, torn pec, structural issues,
mhm.
this and that. And of course, you didn't help the case much by being overly loud and overly outspoken. I actually liked it, but a lot of people, you were getting under a lot of people's skin. Um, well, it's not about that, but the fact is, you had a dream and you went for the dream where pretty much, other than maybe your closest people in your life, your family, your friends, I mean, you had a very good support team. But other than that, not many people believed in you. In fact, there are tons and tons of evidence forever engraved on social media of
Yeah.
people making fun of you, people ridiculing you. I mean, how hard was it to overcome all those distractions in terms of, I mean, it wasn't, I mean, let's call it for what it is. It was hatred, like pure hatred towards you, and yet you were able to somehow. Because I didn't think that you had the maturity level, to be honest, to shut off that. Because I know you. I know you're actually, despite the big muscles and everything, you're very kind-hearted, very soft-spoken in reality, and you're a very sensitive guy in reality. I mean, I hope you don't mind me saying it, but you're
No, that's
very
fine.
sensitive. How was it? Despite being sensitive, I mean, clearly you're a very strong individual to overcome all that, all the negativity, all the shit talking, all the hatred. How did you deal with that?
Yeah, the beginning of the run, I'd say even before bodybuilding, like competitive bodybuilding, which I did my first show in 2010. I came to Apollon in 2007, but I was just a college student going back and forth. Came back permanently 2009, and that's kind of where everything started to kind of kick in that way. And I don't want to make it sound like it wasn't Apollon that was just, it was mostly online. Few instances with some members at Apollon, but online. And at the beginning of my career was kind of a dark place. Where it was a lot of negativity, and I had to derive a lot of my motivation and inspiration to train hard, like from negative experiences. Like I really got into the I'm going to show these motherfuckers. I'm going to prove them wrong. I remember, our good friend Eric Schwartz, always said the quote, nothing shuts a hater up like nothing but massive success. So to shove like that in their face. So we were always going towards that. Towards the end of my career, the last couple of years, I really like excelled physically. So like while I wasn't winning my pro card, say at the USA's, I still looked the part when I walked into the gym. I was very impressive when, big, hard and impressive in the gym. So I was getting less like hatred from like my posts on Instagram. I also matured a bit more. So my post became a lot more positive and like inspiring of people rather than like using my mouth to like kind of hype myself up a bit more, like I was, in my mid 20s and stuff like that. But there was a lot that I took on, and I tell the younger guys now that are teenagers now and young 20s. I say your guys' experience is much different because your guys are a lot more supportive of each other. They're a bit, this generation is a bit softer. I said we come from the forum generation where you can have people that will just ridicule you. And that you can't even really see their face, and you're gonna have to either don't read it, or in my case, like I did read it, or people showed me, and you had to take that in. And there was no safe spaces. There was no I'm gonna kill myself or anything like that. It was just literally like deal with it and do something about it. It sucked. It was unnecessary. It was bullying. But it's just something that I went to the gym a lot angry in the beginning, and then towards the end, it was more of a positive experience that I wanted to prove my support system that they were right. So that was I wanted to do it for them and for myself at the end. When I won, and we all know about the post where I screenshot all the old haters from
I like
from
that.
2013 and 14. That was an aftermath thing, but that wasn't my goal. Like going into the day of the show, like I'm going to shut these motherfuckers up. That was just like, you know what? Now that I've done it, now these guys are going to fucking hear about it. That sort of thing.
It's I'll be honest with you, and I when I saw you at the gym, I said it to you personally. I think I'm a little older than you, but you motivate people like me. You motivate people. You motivate, so to speak, and don't take this the wrong way. You motivate the losers.
Yeah.
Where losers start to believe that, yeah, we can be winners too. Despite all the hatred, despite everything, despite all the negativity, if you work something for something that hard, and when you try to achieve your goal, you just go for it. No matter what, you go for it and you achieve it. I mean, you might not, but at least you're going to give it your absolutely best. There were some rumors, so I'm going to ask you about different things. By the way, this show is never scripted,
Hmm.
and you know me very well. You know me. We've been friends for many, many years, and you know that I don't hold back. So I'm going to ask you questions, and I know you're also not going to back off.
Yeah.
So this is not scripted. I don't prepare for these shows. Whatever comes to mind, I just ask, and you always reserve the right to not to answer. But knowing you, I know you're going to answer.
Mhm.
There was some rumors about the fact that win or lose, this was your last show. Is it true?
That it wasn't the last show; it was the last season. So if I had not won the universe, and we're recording this after Masters Nationals just happened this past Thursday, I was planning on doing that. Had I didn't win that, and if I had not won Masters Nationals, then North Americans is in a couple of weeks, and I would have done that. If I couldn't get in 3 tries, then I was going to be done. So it was the final prep, so to speak, not the final show itself.
Okay, let me be the dick in this situation and ask you this. Would you consider yourself, if you would have done the season and you would not win the pro card, would you consider yourself a loser and that you gave up?
No, I just knew that I had put everything into it, and it just wasn't in the cards at that point. Because we were in now that I'm 35, we were doing the masters class, and that I always felt was even last year when I was 34, I did the USA's. I placed 10th in the heavyweights of the USA's, and I wish that I was 35 then because I felt that I would have done much better in the Masters division. And the mindset was going into Masters this year. If you can't do it in Masters 3 tries, it's probably not going to happen. At the same time, my priorities, and we've talked about this, my priorities and focus has changed immensely over this past winter with my son's wrestling really picking up, and I really got into it. So that actually helped the mindset of like offloading the pressure or offloading the necessity to have to turn pro. I was, of course, wanted to give it 1 try, 1 season at the Masters level, but had it not gone, well, I would still need to be the father of a wrestler. So it wasn't as much like you're a loser, you didn't do it because I knew that I was at my best. It was just you know it would be one thing if it was like you like really screwed up. And I knew that I wasn't going to screw up. I knew I was going to be at my best. It's just in bodybuilding, it's hard to tell who's going to show up at the show.
Okay, but let's see. So the thing is that you got your pro card right now, dream come true, and out of the blue, Gary Turner announces his retirement by by pro status. I mean, you're not that old. I mean, you still probably have a couple of good years competing. Going for your goal for so many years, finally achieving IFBB Pro status, and you're walking away. Don't you want to see yourself against the best in the world or against the pros? Are you satisfied? Are you at peace with walking away from this?
Yes, that's the one thing and going into it, I knew I was I knew I was going to be, and I am. It's true at peace, because I'm very self-aware of where my ceiling is genetically. I knew that I put everything into it. I don't mean just like dieting. You know me. I never miss anything. Diet, cardio training, drugs doesn't matter. I my preps are always flawless. I knew that it was a God-given thing that this is it's a stretch goal to get the pro card. It's not a shoe-in. So for me to get it, that would be the stretch goal. I know once you get into the pro league, there are guys that could show up 12 weeks out and still beat me at my best, me probably taking double the amount of drugs as this other guy, and still and it's not my fault. It's not that I didn't try or apply myself. It's just the fact is that God gave him different genetics and I can't beat them. And that's the end of the road for me. So am I improving physically? Yes. Do I have more ways to improve? Yes, but still because I got the pro card, it's not going to be enough at that level. If I was still amateur, right, and I wanted to compete further as an amateur, then it would be a harder decision actually to walk away because I'm getting better. Most of these guys they retire on the downswing. They injure both shoulders. They can't even do a shoulder workout. Every time they get on stage, they get worse. I'm getting better exponentially each time. However, the fact that now I'm in the pro ranks and know that I have to go stand next to Hassan Mustafa and or even the fact is to understand is that I was not very heavy on stage. I weighed in at 215. That means that I'm a 5'9", 212 competitor, which is crazy. I I'm at 5'9". I should be an open competitor. Where's the 40 pounds of muscle for me to compete at 250 going to come from? I've been training 20 years. I probably, like I said, take more drugs at this competitively than most of these guys, if not on par with them. It's not like I could just double that because I'm just going to kill myself, literally kill myself in the process. You would be reading about me on the online after that. So it's like, for what? You're still not going to win. So it's
So
just
what you're saying is that being a husband, being a father, being a family man, and being, I mean, I know it sounds ironic, but being health conscious, part of your decision is because you do not want to take your body to the next level, meaning more drugs.
yeah. And I think that and just no, well, that's another thing. I mean, you knew me as a kid who would, go to great lengths for that. But then, now everything's just a lot more important. Of course, mental maturity comes into play where you're not the same gun to the head type person. And also understanding that what my, cycle history has been for the last since 2008 or whenever it started, if it was like very, very light and there was a lot of, improvement, like a lot that could be added in that could really change me. But the thing is, we've already exhausted those ace cards, just to get to this level. So the thing is, if you double it, if that even makes a difference, then you're in like really, really red area to like be in big trouble. So yeah, the health side is definitely a thing. This isn't like retiring from golf or bowling because you just don't feel like practicing anymore and you want to go to the beach or something like that. This is like a decision that you could die from, and you have to be smart.
I understand. And I agree with you. Don't get me wrong. I just trying to be a devil's advocate right now and trying to present you with questions that I know that some of the people who are going to be watching this probably would have for you. And like I
Sure.
said, I appreciate the fact that you're not holding back because this is not about making sensational, statements or anything like that. This is about just two friends having an honest conversation. So I'm not trying to trap you into anything. However, I have to ask you this. Do you believe that you won your pro card at your absolute best, or do you believe at any point of time in prior years you looked actually better according to your own opinion, obviously, because let's face it, I always hesitate to call bodybuilding a sport because I feel sometimes it's more like a beauty pageant where, it's very, very subjective. So, when I say that I have my questions regarding whether or not bodybuilding is a sport or not, some people get offended by it. But obviously, you know where I'm coming from with this.
Sure.
So, in your personal opinion, did Gary Turner won the pro card at his best? Or were you, in your own opinion, of course, better at any previous shows?
I would definitely say I was at my best, and this was easily the most conditioned that I've been. I've always my front side always very lean from the front, always been very impressive. So I've been bigger in the past. However, just from behind, glutes, hamstrings, lower back, that's always where I store my fat and water. And I've always had a little bit of trouble like being outrageous in that area. So to get that into the outrageous uh, zone, it was the weight had to come down a little bit, and we did it. So I was actually very impressed with my rear shots uh, on this. Usually when the NPC photos come out, usually from behind, you don't look as really as ripped as you really were in person. But the one when they came out from behind, I was like very, very pleasantly happy. And so I knew that I finally arrived with it. And then even waiting online, like the class was 12 guys deep, and there were some like very, very good physiques, and they were in good shape. Um, and it was a heavyweight class that included super heavyweights. So the guy who took fourth weighed in at 259. I weighed 215. I think the third place guy was probably close to my weight, and then the second place guy was a super heavy, but just probably over the 225 mark. They were all in good shape. And had I not been peeled out of my mind, I would have lost. I would have been a couple spots down. So it was, it needed to be done. So it felt good to finesse a good lineup like that because shape's not on my size. I'm not on my side. I do look much bigger in than my weight presents, which is great. That's bodybuilding right there. Nobody gives a shit what you weigh. You can lie and say you weigh
Absolutely.
250. So that's what I try to tell these young guys that are like, well, I hope to come down and be at the top of the light heavyweights. I said, you're setting yourself up to fail right there. You're gonna get to 198. You're not gonna be conditioned properly, and you're gonna stop yourself from it because you want to weigh 198 on stage instead of weighing 188, where you could be out of your mind. So that's why. But I was very happy with the look that presented against the guys. Now, have I been bigger? Yeah, I weighed when the USA's. I took fifth. I was 235 at weigh-ins on Thursday, and I was much larger, obviously, by 20 pounds. And the front side was similar condition, but that's always like that. Like people see me right now, I weighed in at like 245 to 250, and I'm taking progress pictures after the gym for fun, and I'm fully shredded from the front, but nobody's seen my back shots. They're not stage ready. Glutes aren't stage ready, but that's my problem area. So, whatever. I'm retired. I show my front shots for Instagram, but that fifth place at the USA backside was good, but not out of control. So this was my favorite look.
Okay. Typically, when a bodybuilder wins, or when they say he's better, the word that associated with better is very often bigger. So they say he's bigger and he's better, which is clearly not your case. And more often than anything, when it's bigger, it's also more drugs.
Mhm.
Since you are fully transparent, we're not going to ask you, obviously, to disclose your cycles and stuff like that because we know how stupid people are. But I'm going to ask you point blank, did you take more drugs than ever for this show because you were not bigger? Or did you rely more on diet? and training and cardio and those things?
More GH, and
But
so which is ironic because you would think that more GH would present a more bubbly, voluminous look, maybe heavier body weight. Um, and it didn't, and I ran more GH in the off season, getting ready for the show, and it still didn't present that. I mean, I started this prep at 250. In the years past was like 270, 281. Prep in 2020 was 300. It was a horrible 300, but those were less GH. You would think like, oh, I'm sorry, those were less GH then, and I was heavier than now, and I took more GH, and I was lighter. But the diet was much different. Where on off days it was very low. On training days, the diet always changed a lot. So there was actually more food. Cardio, I chose to do more intense cardio this time. I actually did, especially at the end, for the most part, to get that hard bit of fat off, I changed to elliptical, to be honest with you. And I was very focused on the heart rate at the end so that it was proper. It wasn't, you see people do cardio and they're talking to people.
yeah,
You're not doing it. You're getting steps in at that point, which is fine. I calculated steps too, but I'm like, when I'm getting my heart rate 120, 130, you can't talk to me. That's it. I'm training at that point. My cardio is a training session. But in terms of the actual gear, it was similar to the rest, but there was different changes. Like this time I pulled test around 3 weeks out. And so that was a hardening effect. I mean, we've talked about it years ago, but that's like a European type model that these guys do low test or no test, and they come in shredded. The high test thing is more of an American thing who have trouble with conditioning for the most part. And, it's not bad to do in the off season when you're trying to build muscle. Test is definitely necessary in the off season, but we're not trying to build muscle really at the prep. So, I mean, it's a case by case basis. I would not suggest, unless you have a coach that knows what he's looking at, to say, hey, what do you think about pulling test, with that. But like it wasn't like I doubled my trend this year or something like that. It wasn't anything much different than that. um, I mean, I used Anavar this year, but pharmaceutical American Anavar at the end, that helped keep fullness. I didn't do that in the past. um, and I try to explain people, like when they're like, I'm running 100 milligrams of Anavar, and I'm like, that's not real Anavar. 30 milligrams, when I say is all you need, is probably all you could tolerate of American. And secondly, when they're
pharmaceutical grade.
right, an American Anavar, pharmaceutical grade, is expensive as shit. You will know if someone is charging you for American pharmaceutical Anavar. It's like 3 times the amount of this underground shit. That's probably it's either like 1 milligram of Anavar in a tablet that says it's 10, or it's Turinabol or Winstrol. Uh,
It's funny that you said, not using as much testosterone because recently I was with a group of people and there was a conversation, and one of the guys says that, if I'm not mistaken, that he was doing a cycle of 250 or 300 milligram of test, but he was doing about 800 milligram of Primo, and I think there was some Anavar involved. And the other guy who was in conversation, he goes, no, 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 that's totally wrong. Your Primo should be 300 milligram and your test should be 800 milligram. So I can see what you're saying here. It's a very American thing to have tests through the roof, where some people think that anything less than 500 or even 1,000 is not really counts as a cycle. But yeah, I mean, for most part, you will see European guys sometimes, in some cases, are smaller than Americans, but they definitely tighter, and that could very be much the reason why. Because as many times as I spoke to European bodybuilders, test was always almost TRT level.
hmm Yep. It's a very interesting thing. It started to get like I started to hear like rumblings about like that sort of thing in the off season. I'm not saying I necessarily agree with that in the off season, where you would go, like TRT test and then like throw the Primo through the roof, or EQ through the roof or something like that. in the off season when you're trying to build muscle, maybe because you should want your estrogen to get a little bit higher in that when you're like adding muscle on. But if we're talking about straight contest prep where guys are having trouble becoming like out of their mind peeled, it's something to look into at least because I think that that's a factor. And I also think, like we said before, focusing on body weight, big factor. Who are the most conditioned guys in the shows now? Classic guys. Why? Because they got to get their body weight down. They're the most impressive conditioned guys on the Olympia stage, and not because I think the open bodybuilders are trying to come in so they can say, "Hey, I added 10 pounds on the stage weight. Look at me now." I'm like, yeah, but also look at if you were shredded like this classic guy, you would also walk through the show, but you would be lighter. Are you okay with that? It's a hard mental thing. You got to be okay with that.
Today, I mean, you see a lot of kids or very inexperienced bodybuilders. We're talking like entry level bodybuilders,
Mhm.
with a year or two under the belt of training, taking massive amounts of drugs, like really, really massive. I mean, in most cases, they actually taking fake shit that is severely underdosed, but it's not. It's pretty much. Not surprising to see somebody who is hasn't even been on stage but taking massive amounts of gear, and not just gear but also we're talking insulin, high amounts of GH, diuretics. I know somebody who's taking diuretics pretty much on a daily basis to keep the water down. I mean, you see and hear some outrageous things. What advice, because I know that your approach is going to be very sensible. What advice would you give to up and coming bodybuilders or just recreational users of gear who want to look good for the summer or for a vacation, or I don't know, for a wedding or something, when they want to go to the dark side, so to speak? What advice would you give them?
Well, definitely, this is going to shock a lot of these kids, and because the buzzword that we hear on the internet, and memes and everything like that is trend.
Yes.
That's got is somehow that got popular. But what these guys need to understand is if you're not competing and you're not in the last 8 weeks before your show, maybe last 10 weeks, you shouldn't use tren at all. It is the number one steroid that is going to guaranteed fuck your blood work up. And if you're not going on stage, then it's for nothing. Secondly, your body fat's probably not low enough that you're going to really see a major difference from, say, another safer steroid. So if you're going for just a wedding or to look good for summer, you could use in a smaller cycle, but say like a test primo or something like that, where it's like something that's not going to literally destroy your life, and you still could get good results from it. But somehow trend got this like glorified thing. Is it good? Yeah, of course it's good. Do you need it for the end of prep? I'm not saying you absolutely need something, but if you're able to tolerate it, it's definitely probably going to help you. But the problem is these young guys, they don't have anything on the line. They're just going to the gym to be good, and they can be good. They can get a little help. I'm not telling you don't. I'm not one of those guys that say don't do any steroids at all because I understand how unrealistic that is. I wasn't that guy. I would have looked at you like you're freaking crazy. Like I'm not going to listen to that guy. But I also on the same thing is I'm not going to tell the young kids to do what I do because I had a lot on the line. I had a lot invested into this whole thing, and I was farther along. So it was, I would definitely tell them to uh, speak with people. Definitely hire a coach. When we started, it was very like you had to go by the forums and you didn't know who they were, and you had to trust. You hopefully trusted the right guys and their guidance that you found there. And because you couldn't ask people in the gym. You remember how hardcore Apollon was? It's still hardcore, but it was crazy back in the day when you bought the gym, and
Oh yeah, it was completely different.
you had to get on those guys' inner circle, get their trust, become one of the guys, and then maybe you can ask them maybe for some advice. You couldn't ask them to get you stuff. Nobody was going to deal it to you, but you can at least ask them if you got on the inner circle. You couldn't be some random guy go, hey, I'm thinking about running Tasdeca and like and just go like that because it was gonna be an issue. It was very uncustomary to ask that. It was rude. It is a different time now, and I still get caught off guard with it. And like in the gym when they ask me, and I'll answer them because I won't be a dickhead to them. But like when they walk away, I'm like, these kids just don't know any better. They've never been brought up in like the gym etiquette of that. Is like, dude, don't just ask the random guy about like, you know, trend or something like that, because chances are you probably shouldn't even be like messing with it. It's definitely more available now than it was back then. Back then, you had to go to the Western Union at the food store and send a money order to like China or Moldova and hope to God they sent you something back and hope to God it was good. Now these guys Venmo stuff, which is crazy because there's a freaking paper trail leading right back to you. But whatever, that's a whole nother conversation. But I would say for them, stay away from the trend. You definitely don't need GH. Most like that's another buzzword, but people don't understand, and insulin. And I'm not one of these guys that also say that insulin's going to kill you one time. It's very hard to go into insulin shock. You really have to not eat. The reason I tell them no is because GH and insulin, people have the wrong idea on what it is. They think that it's like the thing that's going to put 30 pounds of muscle on you. I'm like, you're mistaking that for Anadrol. Anadrol has those properties. Tests might have those properties, maybe on your first time. But insulin, I never seen a big jump in weight from using insulin. I used it to get my blood sugar down mainly. If I was having in the off season, blood sugar was rising because carbs were high, body fat was a little bit up, and then maybe I used a long acting insulin for a measure to because my body was presenting high blood glucose. But these guys think that they added in, and it's like now I'm on insulin, I'm going to get the crazy pumps, I'm going to be 30 pounds heavier. I'm like, it doesn't work that way. And especially GH, you cannot empty your bank account as a normal guy to get this because the return that you're going to get is going to be so disappointing for you. I probably won't use growth hormone again. If I do, it'd be like very health based, maybe 2IU type thing, just so for like youthfulness kind of deal.
Gary, I would jumping here to a slightly maybe different subject. Now that you're retired from competing, and knowing you, I know you're not gonna get back on stage. I know you keep your word, and I always
Yeah.
admire that about you. But you are an IFBB Pro. I know that it's in a way it's meaningless if you're not competing, but I know for you it was a goal. It was personal. It was never for anything, not for glory, not for money, not for anything. For you it was a personal mission in life. You achieved that. Once again, congratulations, because I know how much it meant to you. But at the same time, you are a seasoned experienced bodybuilder. Maybe you're not a seasoned IFBB Pro, but you definitely have a couple of years of serious training, dieting, drugs, supplements. You work for one of the most well-known companies in the world, so you clearly are still involved. Is it safe to say that you're going to stay in a sport in some capacity? I don't mean working for Universal Animal, but I mean like maybe perhaps coaching or other stuff. Do you have any interest in that? Because again, when they say meatheads and they say bodybuilders are stupid and stuff like that, we both know it's not the case. And you are one of the most intelligent bodybuilders that I know. And I think that you could guide athletes and give them your experience and knowledge. Would you be interested in that, or is it something that you're planning to pursue, or you walking away, done with it?
I'm definitely not going to be one of those guys that like disappear. If you remember, like back in the day, before he passed, like Mike Matarazzo disappeared.
Yeah.
All those guys from the '90s. Melvin Anthony gone before Gustavo, before he passed away like a couple weekends ago, was gone. I'm not going to go away like that, but I'm not going to be floating around like every show. Just like that. I do have a handful of clients. I'm we all know that I'm very strict with myself, and I'm like that with my clients, and I expect that from my clients. So I don't have that many, but I am now due to not having to worry about every little thing that I'm doing. I am expanding out to take on some more clients, but only the guys that are going to want to work hard. And it's mainly a lot of the guys that come to me are originally not even guys that want to prep for shows. It's guys that I want to get huge. I've seen how big that you've been at one point. Can you help me? Yes, of course I can help you. They almost start off as more serious lifestyle or like off-season competitors, and then we get big, and then we go into like contest preps like that. I've actually had a client that, and most people would think this is crazy, but I also have the integrity level that I wouldn't ruin somebody that I think that is a like a top, has the potential to be top national level. And I had a client that was saying, I'm thinking about going to this other coach. He was with me 2 years, and he was advanced. He took second at the junior nationals with me in light heavyweight. And I knew he had a conversation with a top coach, and he was like asking me about it. He was beating around the bush, and I know how hard those conversations could be with your current coach. It's like breaking up with a girlfriend, but it's required. Don't If anybody's watching this and you have a current coach and don't want to work with them, have a mature conversation with them. Don't just disappear and let them find you another coach. That's a chump move. But I made it easy on him. I said, listen, man, I have I am experienced, but the level that you're at and the level of where you're going, you're going to need to level up your coach as well. I'm not going to sit here and ruin your chances. Okay. I said, I took you, you came to me when you were green and brand new. And I took you as far as I feel that at this current point in my expertise, I could take you. And he was appreciative of that. He's actually on his way to North Americans in a few weeks. So, he looks great. So, I do believe those guys that are coming in, that are coming up, that whether they're at the gym locally or they're getting ready for the local shows, they want to add some serious mass on. That's really where my department's going to be. But I do definitely want to be around for those guys, and I do like the motivational side of it. I mean, people read my posts all the time, and they're like, "Dude, that's what got me into like following you or wanting to be coached by you." I said, "Yeah, but that's also going to apply to you when I'm speaking to you. I speak to them that way. That like, if somebody's like, I can't, I just don't feel like making it to the gym. I'm like, you sound like a pussy. My son, who's 8, just did double sessions on the wrestling mat. Get to the fucking gym. I don't play with them like that. I'm not. This isn't Bally Total Fitness. I don't do well as a trainer in places like that with regular people.
It's interesting because you kind of touched upon briefly, how strict you are, and again, I know firsthand that you would never. And I mean, if I was a betting man, and I know I would have won $1 million betting on you. You would never cheat on your diet. I know you don't cheat on your diet. You don't cheat on your training. You don't cheat on anything when it comes to it. I mean, I know how strict you are. And it seems like a lot of coaches these days, and there's a very, very popular term for it, which, to be honest with you, I never liked, and that's guru. Because very often, guru is implied also as a drug guru, where they tell people what to take. It's almost like a doctor prescribing a bunch of drugs and stuff like that. I do prefer the term coach. Maybe I'm a little bit old-fashioned when it comes to it, but coaching implies, obviously, besides the drugs, also implies supplementation, and I mean real supplementation, not drugs. It also implies, obviously, training and nutrition. And I know, again, I can attest to it. If somebody doesn't believe you, I know how Gary Turner can diet like nobody else. I mean, if this was a if this was a Mr. Olympia who can diet the hardest, you probably would have been a multiple-time Mr. Olympia.
Yeah.
That's how good you are. For those that probably would, even if I will ask you this question, and you know where I'm going with this. I know a lot of people will say that I talk shit and you talk shit, but nevertheless, still enlighten me. How important is the diet in off season and contest prep? What emphasis would you put, of the importance of dieting? Because recently there was this thing where Jay Cutler said that, I know he's prepping right now for his 50th birthday or something like that, and he said he's not happy with the results. And mainly he said the reason is because he didn't take his diet as seriously as he should have. So, clearly it is important, even though people rely more on T3 and insulin and tren and this and that. Uh, Despite the drug use, where you said that you were not exactly very conservative, but how important the diet played a role in your success, in not just on stage, but just in generally building muscles.
Yeah, the diet, I think, and Jay said this years ago, the diet was number one. And he put that before training. And years ago, my training used to suck. It wasn't intense. It was very pump related. Actually, Irina, who worked at the front desk of Apollon for years, I remember my first prep. Uh, I was starting to look good, and I came into the office all excited. I said, Irina, how do I look? And she said, very good, but you talk too much, meaning to the people on the floor, meaning my workouts weren't intense, and she was an intense trainer. And it wasn't until 2019 that I really started to like log my books and my workouts and everything like that. Took that seriously, but my diet was always what drove me prior to that. And just like I have some crazy stories involving diet, I dropped my fish and greens on Apollon's gym floor when I was working there, so I couldn't leave, and that was the meal that I had to get me to the end of shift. I took it, put it back into off the gym floor, put it back into the Tupperware, rinsed water on it, and then I ate it off the gym.
I know you're not lying.
And it was some old, cold tilapia, and I just did it because I couldn't leave and get more food, and I wasn't just not going to eat because it hit the floor. I mean, I've left funerals to get my food. I've sat in the valet line in the car at weddings eating. And it was just, those are the sacrifices that you had to make. But that's also why I never was mad after 99% of my shows that I've lost. I wasn't mad after. One of them, I felt like I should have been in a better spot, and I was angry after prejudging. But all the other ones that didn't go my way, my parents would be the ones that were upset. Like, why didn't these judges move me? I said, it's fine. I said, I did everything that I possibly could do. I didn't miss a meal. There's only been one meal in 13 years that I competed that I missed. And I fell asleep after meal 5, and I had to eat meal 6, and I woke up in the morning. That was the only meal I never cheated on a meal, and I never missed a training or cardio session. And that's not to boast. That's to show the viewers the standard
It's true.
at which
It's 100% true. In fact, sorry to interrupt you because I don't want to forget this. I'm gonna tell a crazy story about Gary Turner that even I have sometimes hard time believing it, but it is true because it involved me and it involved Apollon. This is going back years ago, say 10 years, 12 years ago. We had a massive winter storm, and Apollon is a type of gym that is always open. It's open Christmas, New Year's, Thanksgiving, we always open. Which just happens to be that there was a couple of feet of snow. It was really, really bad. The conditions were just ridiculous. So we closed the gym. And I get this ridiculous phone call from Gary Turner. Why is the gym closed? And I remember saying, like, Gary, I mean, it's not, conditions are terrible, not really driving conditions. Yeah, but I have a show to win. I have a show to train for. I can't miss my session. I was like, you know what? You have the key. Knock yourself out. Go shovel the snow. Go do whatever the fuck you want. And I think you did.
I did shovel the driveway and then the path. And yeah, I remember that. I was an employee then. I think
and you still did not miss your fucking training session.
We opened up on Hurricane Sandy. Do you remember that?
Because we didn't have a choice because of you.
Yeah, I opened it because I lived down the road, but it was water everywhere, and then we ended up putting the message out that anybody that wants to come train. We made a lot of money.
I remember, like, you texted me like, we're making a lot of money. I was like, yeah, there are stupid people like you, but you actually went there, and it was, I mean, it just goes to show how big your heart is. And I know you're a massive, massive, massive fan of the Rocky movies.
Yeah.
And I know that you have that heart of a champion, and that's the reason. Well, I can't say that I support your craziness because I would encourage a lot of crazy people to do crazy shit and maybe dangerous shit. But I can tell you this: when it comes to heart, and I mean it wholeheartedly, you're second to none. You're among the very best. I'm 48 years old, and in my experience being involved, martial arts, bodybuilding, various sports, powerlifting, everything that I've seen, you are easily one of the hardest working men I have ever seen. And I think that you do have a heart of a champion. And I think the fact that, you got what you wanted for such a long time, it's not just because of drugs, which people I know threw in your face many, many, many times. It's because you will do whatever it takes, literally, to achieve your goal. Again, sometimes it might be dangerous, and sometimes we cannot recommend people, going in a snowstorm and shoveling snow. And I would never say that, guys, be like Gary Turner. But on the other hand, without being politically correct, I think you're a perfect example of, of a true success story. I know you didn't make millions by becoming an IFBB Pro. You spend probably shitload of money on your way to being an IFBB Pro. But I wish people would see past the trend, past the insulin, past the GH, and look into such basics as diet and training and motivation. And one of the things that I admire about you most, and people that know me, they know I don't kiss ass. It's not sugarcoating or anything like that. One of the things that I admire about you the most is the fact that you're not stubborn and you don't shy away from criticism. You will take criticism, you will analyze it, and you will accept it and try to be better. Well, today, there are people who are unable to take it. I mean, a couple of years ago, maybe 2, 3 years ago, this guy was, and I typically, when I see people at the gym, I don't comment on their training. I don't tell them what to do because, it's just, I mind my own business. And a couple of years ago, this kid that I've seen like once at the gym or something like that was doing, what was he? He was doing laterals. And the weight was so heavy that literally he couldn't even move it, like only a couple of inches. I don't remember what the weight was, but it was just, he was struggling to move it even a couple of inches. And for some stupid reason, I approached him and I said, like, maybe take lighter weight and just, do it properly. I wasn't making fun of him. I was very, very sensitive. I was very nice. And the kid didn't know who I was and gave me this look. And he goes to me, "Hey, man, this is Apollon. This is how we do it here." And I'm like, ugh, okay. But you, on the other hand, you always took criticism very well. And that's very admirable.
I think, I'm not saying that this didn't happen in the past, but this is a generational difference. I don't want to blame the whole new generation, sound like some old geezer either. I'm just saying from the culture that Apollon used to be, where, and I'm not there often now, so I don't know if it's quite the same. Where I used, you remember, I used to follow the big guys around the gym, and I would just be very quiet. And Dennis Hobson, Drew Gemmett, Elena Seipel, when all these guys were getting ready for USA and everything, and I would be like, they're here. And I would watch from afar what they're doing, or if they're filming with RX muscular development, and I just watch, and then I would ask questions when I could, but I wouldn't like jump in their face, and I wouldn't. And if they ever told me, I remember Big Sean Allen saw me walking lunge at Apollon with like 60-pound dumbbells, and I was just falling over with it, and he told me, he showed me how to do it without any weight, and it killed my quads, but we did it right. And I just knew these people's credentials, and I had respect for them and the credentials that they presented. So I just knew enough to shut the fuck up when they were talking to me. It's like what I call, and I tell my son about it. It's called having a white belt mentality. And that goes up to even when you're advanced. Is always have a white belt mentality. Act like you're a beginner. And look for something that you could learn. You never master. And if you do think that you're a master, that's when you start to like regress, because you're going to think that you know everything, and you don't know everything. Nobody knows everything. There's always something that you maybe can learn. And I just think that, like, I know what you're talking about when you try to help somebody and it blows up in your face, and you're like, well, fuck them and fuck everybody. If I'm not going to say anything to anybody, they're all on their own to do whatever the fuck they want to do then. And that's not really how the gym culture should be. It should be everybody helping everybody. It's a very hard way to get into that conversation without seeming like a douchebag. And even worse is if you're a man and you're trying to assist like a woman and help her literally in the gym, everybody thinks, or she might think that you're hitting on her, or you're mansplaining, as they like to use that terminology. I'm like, I'm just trying to make sure that, that she's doing it right because I'm trying to help her. That's how it was back in the day. Hey, kid, don't sit your butt so far back in your squat. You're tilting over like that. It's all pressures on your lower back. There's things like that. Reggie would help me. And it wasn't like I would tell Reggie, get the fuck away from me. This guy's helped everybody. You listen. So it's like, it's a different like world. And I guess what I'm trying to say is I hope that any of the younger gym people now, you know, I'm just explaining what it was like back in the day that maybe they can get a different perception, or like if something happens like that in the gym, listen to the guy. At least listen to him. You might be able to get a pointer from him.
Okay. I'm going to ask you a couple of quick questions just to kind of get people's perspective on your opinion on certain things that I guess, uh, viewers, listeners would want to find out. You obviously work for Universal and, for Animal. So this is not to, hype up the products or advertising related whatsoever. Oh, I know you're a straight shooter, but very often you hear people saying like, "Oh, supplements are useless. They have no place. These bodybuilders are promoting them because they are sponsored by these companies, and it's all about drugs, 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 and nothing else." Name three supplements that you use religiously, because I know there's probably more, but again, this is not to promote, not to advertise. I'm not trying to hype Universal or Apollon. I'm actually trying to stay away from Apollon Nutrition as far as possible. So I'm trying to stay away from Universal Nutrition as far as possible, or any brands, because we're not promoting right now. This is not about promoting. This is about a conversation. So, what supplements do you actually use, and you think, and they play a huge part in in your preparation, or just day to day meal plans and whatnot, that you believe in them, and I know you're very knowledgeable when it comes to supplements. So just share with us two or three supplements that you use, believe, and you think everybody should use them.
Yeah. And this isn't to plug it, but I'll still use the brand name. Because listen, I don't use every animal supplement. There are ones I skip
Right?
over that
Mm.
just don't have an application to me, or one guy might like, and maybe I don't. But the ones that I use that definitely for sure, Animal Pack. That's a base to everything. That's been around forever. It's a multivitamin, multi mineral. I like that one. I like how comprehensive it is. Two of the ones that I definitely feel work is our Animal Flex. That's the joint supplement. It's one of those things that if you have joint issues, you will, and they're minor, not like you blew out your elbow. That's not going to help with that. But if you have like minor aches and pains, you will feel a difference in your joint with that. And the big one that people overthink on, and the one I love, is our Animal PM. It's a sleep supplement, and it's one of the ones that you can feel like right when you use it the first time. It doesn't put you to sleep. It's not like it's like going to make you groggy and fall asleep. When you take it before bed, when you do go to sleep, it's going to make you get into a deeper sleep so that your sleep's more efficient. If you sleep 4 hours, it might make you feel like you sleep 6 or 7, so you're recovered a little bit better. And that's where most people, actually, a young kid in the gym come up to me the other day and he asked me, he's asked me just how to get better. And I said, well, what does your sleep look like? And he's like, well, I stay up late. I said, don't do that. I said, go to sleep. Stop watching YouTube. If you get sleep, you will get bigger. So this just helps you become more efficient, because we know that sometimes you could sleep 8 hours and wake up and feel like you slept left nothing, or you're still tired. So that's one of the ones where you do feel refreshed. Again, I'm not one of these guys that put a lot of stock into pre-workouts. Do I use them? Yeah. Do I
On
think they're
occasion.
right? Yeah, I use them on occasion, and I take them for what they work. A little bit of a kick in the ass, but I'm not one of those guys that have to use them to go do that. Do I like protein powders? Yes, I love protein powders. Do you need to use them? No. If your diet consists of food, that's fine. Do I enjoy the protein powders? Yes. Sometimes a little sweet tooth from the chocolate or something is good. I enjoy it. Mix it with oatmeal or something like that. Um, but yeah, I'm not one of those guys that will go right down the line for every SKU that we have and just promote everything, because some things that we have, like, maybe even I'll just say it out loud, our testosterone boosters, I don't use. That's for a natural athlete. The natural athletes love it, but I don't. I don't personally use it. And if somebody asks me, do you use Animal Test or Animal Stack? I'm going to say no, I don't, because I use real shit. So that's
Fair
not that that's real. That is a booster. I'm using exogenous testosterone. So
When it comes to training, I know that you like the hardcore environment, you like the old school. I mean, we all remember the pants that you were wearing and probably still wearing.
Yes.
Um, my question is that if you would recommend a gym, and again, we're not talking about. I don't want people to think that we're trying to plug a Apollon or anything like that. I know it's your original home gym, and
Mhm.
everybody knows how you feel about it. It's not about Apollon. It's not about any of the. We're not even going to name any gyms.
Okay.
Um, but the whole culture when it comes to fitness centers these days, with spas and swimming pools and fancy machines and shiny pin equipment and stuff like that. Do you think that and obviously all the videos and TikToks and stuff like that that people do, but would you say that the hardcore gyms are about to be extinct and where they will they slowly disappearing, or do you still think that 10 years 20 years from now the hardcore gyms still going to exist and there's still going to be a need for them? Like, would you advise, for example, your son to join your local hardcore gym? Let's not call it hardcore, let's call it old school. Or
Mhm.
would you rather he goes to something like Planet Fitness or LA Fitness or any of those places? What is your opinion?
I think that vibe is king over everything. I think that the gym needs to be properly equipped, but vibe more important than anything. We see these new age, their gyms, they could be hardcore, but they're very expensive and very new. They have the best equipment. But the people that go there fuck it up because they're not serious. And you just can't get in there and get a serious, like, ready to go thing. I understand that you can motivate yourself, but there are still, you have peripheral vision, and if people are fucking around setting up tripods and everything around you, it's hard to get into it. And I'd rather, if you ask about my son or myself, I'd rather be in slightly less equipped but very serious vibe. I almost want, like, to, not me personally, but if I was joining a new gym, to be almost a little bit anxious walking in the front door, you know, maybe like the music's blasting and you're like, damn man, look at this place. It's go time right now. That's my personality. But I also like, I wish that it was like the 80s where you go to one gym and every bodybuilder's there. We all know Gold's Venice, in California. We know it's not like that now, but it was 30 years ago where everybody of the who's who and just giant guys, and it was just very, very serious. And I don't think that you find that really anywhere now because I think that there's just gyms everywhere. And I think that people, the newer generation judges based on how good the lighting is because of pictures and how shiny the equipment is. And don't get me wrong, some of this new equipment is real nice, but in all, I just feel that the vibe is the most important thing to progress.
When I mean, obviously you've been doing this for a long time. You are what we would consider today a veteran of the sport, and it's ironic, but it's true. Would you say today in 2023, when you walk into the gym, obviously when you walk into a old school hardcore gym, you probably feel right at home. But when you walk into a fitness center, with shiny lights and shiny equipment and all that, and people see you the way you look and train the way you train, and represent what you represent, do you still get awkward looks and people judge you? Or would you say that things got better or they got worse in terms of, are you an athlete or are you a freak?
Both. I think I have their respect. I know I down here I train at a very good retro, but there's no one like me here. So I do feel like a fish out of water when I go in there. However, they know me, so they did walk up to me and say, "Congratulations on your program." They follow the Instagram and everything like that. But I still stand out, and sometimes it's like a fish out of water standing out, not like, oh, you feel like a god or something. I hate to say that, but I mean, where it's like, it's almost like when I take my t-shirt off and I have my stringer on it, it's like it's kind of like, come on, man, like, and that is different. than it used to be for me. I used to love that, and now it's like I'm a little bit more self-conscious about it, kind of like I know that I stand out more, but in more of like the new age gyms, it might be more hate. They might know me from Instagram, but more a little bit more hate. Um, and Apollon, most of the people know me, so John Gaskins ran right up to me when I was there. So, it was it's different. You see things like that there, but you know, it's a combination of fish out of water, but mixed with respect because they know, like they're like, damn, like kind of
What
thing.
it takes. I have two more things before we wrap up. So the last, well, this one is a question. So the question is, and this might be a little bit, well, not for you, but in general, this will be a hard question. From the videos and from stories and everything that we've seen, you are an amazing father. Your son is very, very lucky to have you. And I said,
Right.
without most respect, you're supportive. We they always say, oh, every father cares about his child. Well, we know it's not true. There are some good fathers. There are some shitty fathers. In my opinion, and opinion, a lot of people that know you, that watch you, that follow you, you're an amazing dad. You're a role model, and you push your kid in a good way. You support him. You clearly care about him tremendously. Your love is showing, and it's really, it's touching. It's very, very touching. I'm impressed. But again, I know you. The difficult question is, and I think you probably already know where I'm going with this. If at any point of time your son comes to you and says, "I want to be a bodybuilder," what will you do? What will you say?
This might be the 50th time I've gotten that question. Everybody asks me that, or they ask me the even harder question that you
And,
probably
and I'll be
thought.
honest with you, I have no idea how you're going to answer this. I really don't.
I would at this point, yeah, he's seen bodybuilding since he's been born, so he knows the poses. He knew how that show was going and all that stuff like that. At first, I would try to continue with his sports and talk him out of it, and I would try to read him with because I know what's going in. And for any parent that would want to volunteer steroids to their kid is crazy. No one would want to. Now you have to read the kid and see how in depth and adamant and set on it. Because the last thing you'd not want to do is support him get animosity towards you, go to the street or some other idiot and ask opinions of him or how do I take testosterone here, because my dad's not going to help me and to do it poorly. Nobody would like volunteer them for that, right? But in the same sense, if the kid's hell bent on it, you don't, and you have the expertise, you also don't want him to do it incorrectly. I think that I've always answered to anybody that it's going to be a game time decision on when he gets to that level. However, I don't know if it'll ever get to that level, just seeing his trajectory with wrestling and football and stuff like that. But it's always an option that he knows. Do I think that he's going to be a gym freak? Yeah, because it's just been around him. So do I think that he's going to be like that wrestler that's also like squatting 500 pounds? Yeah, I do. Like a John Poznansky that we see that comes to Apollon, and he's a Rutgers wrestler. He's also a pretty damn big weightlifter at Apollon and Skiva's gym. Um, and that's how I do foresee him at least going like that. Um, but I wouldn't abandon him. I wouldn't say there's no way that you're bodybuilding and just like shut him off because then
Because I know your parents are very supportive from day one.
very supportive. And but my mom's also the type that if I robbed a bank and showed up with the getaway car, she'd drive just because she would support me 100%. They didn't agree with what I was taking. They knew couple of years after I started, I had to lie for a few years because I was very young. But in the same sense, yes, I wouldn't abandon him at any point to the point was because I didn't agree with it. But we would definitely have some serious conversations about what it takes and all that stuff so that he had all the facts that like you can't do this and be natural. They might say that you can, but you're not going to advance. So you need to understand. Possibly, if he was very young, they wouldn't even be in the conversation until he got a bit older.
Fair enough. I think it's a great answer. So to finish up this interview, I'm gonna say this. As you know, every year Apollon has a All Star seminar. It became a very very prestigious event where by now, especially the last couple of years, it's truly superstars of different sports who are coming to answer questions and participate, and it gotten bigger than we ever expected it to be. And this year, somehow, although I cannot disclose the information yet because uh, poster is coming out in the next couple of weeks. This event's going to be, we raised the bar just a little bit, so it's going to be a very very big event. And the speakers are receiving invitation, obviously, from me, from Carolina. We're sending out invitations, inviting people to participate, to be guests on the panel. You did not receive an invitation. However, you are invited to participate in 2023 Apollon All-Star Seminar, because we felt that more than any time, you deserve to be there. You accomplished your goal. This is a huge year for you. This is at Apollon Gym, obviously. So I hope you accept the invitation as this year All-Star Seminar guest as one of the stars.
Definitely, definitely, and thank you for thinking of me. Of course, yeah. Just let me know when it is, and I'll
Yeah,
be there.
it's October 7th.
Okay.
It's October 7th. I'm not gonna say who is invited because that's
Right.
gonna be. I mean, some people know that Lee Priest is gonna be there, of course, because
Mhm.
he made sure to tell everybody, and
Yeah.
we were pretty much advertising and stuff like that. And Branch Warren's gonna be coming back, and Guy Cisternino. So some people are obviously, it's very rare that we invite the same person 2 or 3 times. That's very, and you've already been a
Mhm.
guest once, but this year I think it's very monumental. It's very very symbolic. And when we were going through the list of people potentially being invited, obviously as soon as you won pro card, and mission accomplished, it became a very very big year for you. It's monumental. It's everything you dreamt for, and you finally got it. And it was impossible to have a seminar without you this year. So I think that we're going to welcome you back home, and you're going to be among the speakers. And we obviously looking forward to it. It's something that you deserve, something that you earned. And to us, you're a star, and I think that you definitely belong on that panel, especially this year.
Definitely, I appreciate it. It's an honor. Thank you.
Great. So October 7th, Gary Turner is one of the stars at Apollon All-Star Seminar. Come and see him, abuse him, make fun of him, hate him some more. Nothing you can do that's gonna change Gary from being the champion that he is. And Gary, I want to thank you for this interview. And
Absolutely.
but most of I want to thank you for being you. And I had my doubts about you. I did. I did. I'm not gonna deny it. And I said it to your face. I'm not one of those guys who's gonna post stupid shit on social media and stuff like that, or gonna offend you or anything like that. At times, I thought you were stubborn. I thought you were a lunatic. But at the same time, I was always, and you know that for a fact, I was always impressed by your heart, by your determination. I thought if this kid never gets a pro card, that's fine. He's already a champion because of just, he kept grinding, and he kept fucking be a stubborn motherfucker that he is. But this pro card, I mean, typically I would say a win is not as important, but in your case, it's very important.
Yeah.
We're not going to beat around the bushes and pretend it's not important. It's earned, it's important. And most of it, like I said, the sport of bodybuilding is a dangerous sport. It's not for everybody. So I'm not going to say, guys, do what Gary did. But maybe you don't want to be a bodybuilder. Maybe you want to be, I don't know, a soccer player, a football player, a basketball player, a tennis player. You want to play chess. You can still be inspired by Gary Turner. You can still be inspired by his heart. So even if you don't want to be a bodybuilder, take a page out of his book, and I don't like the term anything is possible because it's not true. Anything is not possible. But if it's in the cards and if it's something that you wholeheartedly believe in, just the worst thing in life is a regret. I know you're not going to have any regrets moving forward. I know that this chapter is a successfully closed chapter in your book and on to the new beginnings. So congratulations once again. Thank you for inspiring so many of us. Thank you for shutting up the haters. I was not the hater, but I had my doubts. And but on a personal note, I want to thank you for your friendship. I want to thank you for always promoting our gym and for always knowing for always acknowledging where you got started and always paying the respect that you paid to all of us. And I want to wish you continuous success in everything you're gonna do in life because you so fucking deserve it. Well done, Gary.
Thank you, and you're welcome.